On this channel, I'm always striving to bring you the best, newest tools available. So recently, when I saw this advert on YouTube for a machine that can weld, cut and remove rust, I immediately knew I had to buy one and bring it to you. And it's just turned up. So today I'm going to review my brand new laser welding machine. It's a bit lighter than I thought it was going to be though. If you've been watching YouTube recently, which I'm sure you have, and you're interested in tools, which by definition, if you're watching this, you are, and you've looked at any tool review type videos, you may well have seen the same advert that I have for this welding machine. And it just seems unbelievable. When I watch this, the quality of the welds are absolutely stunning. And to have a machine that can also cut metal and remove all of that rust that you see on rebar and steel and stuff like that, quite incredible. The power in these machines must be pretty high, and to produce a perfect weld really without breaking into a sweat and without having to move the welding tool backwards and forwards precisely, it seems just, well, magical really. So I don't know how many times this video has come up on my feed, but this pops up regularly as anything. It looks so plausible and it looks so accurate and so easy, then I'm sure there's a lot of people that have been lured into buying this machine. So I thought, well, if I'm keen to see what this machine does, then what I should do is buy one so I can then show you and you can make your mind up whether this sort of machine is the sort of thing that you really want to invest in. So from this advert, I then clicked on to another link, then took me to a website advertising this machine. And the website is cjuiefe.com, however you pronounce that. I have no clue how you pronounce that. So scrolling through the website, it looks very, very impressive. There's the handheld machine there that's called a laser welder. It talks about the temperature control. It talks about rapid heat in a 4-wire ceramic core. It all looks very professional, and there's lots of pictures there showing industrial type machines and pipelines and factories, lots of stainless steel and maybe lifts. And once again, we've got a female there with a hard hat on that shows you how easy this machine is. If she can do it, then obviously anyone can do it. The machine even comes with an indicator light, would you believe, and some other bits and pieces which I didn't really understand at the time, as well as a see-through window. Have no idea why you need a see-through window, and a trigger and a light. However, if it can weld and do all those fancy things I saw on the initial video, it must be worth it, mustn't it? So I paid my £39.95, let's call it 40 quid, and I've now received it in the post. So let's open this and I'll show you what you get for your 40 quid. So this is the very plain box it came in. Well, it's got a great big dent at the front, and this is what it looks like once you take it out. And I think there's a little bit of a clue right on the very front of it, seeing that it's actually called a solder gun. There's no mention at this point of a laser welding machine or one of those laser machines that cuts all the rust off of rusty metal. This one is just very clearly called a solder gun and made in China at the bottom. So let's see what we've actually got inside. First thing I see is some sort of adapter, so you can at least put it into the mains. And then the gun itself looks a little bit like this. It's, how do I put this politely? Lightweight. I mean, this thing weighs absolutely nothing at all. And from first glances, it sort of looks a little bit like the ones in the video. It's got this sort of straight through metal piece at the front, and then it's got this curving bit that obviously feeds something into the point. And it's got a trigger. Not really sure what that does, and then a button down here which I assume is a sort of on off, and I think that's the indicator light that they were talking about earlier. The bar underneath has got this screw that even when you take out, it doesn't not really sure what that does. Oh, and the one thing I forgot to mention was actually in the box, there are no instructions whatsoever. And that's it. There's no instructions. There's nothing to tell you anything about how to use this laser welding machine. The only other thing it's got on the back is it does seem to have a hole there. Let me just get it a bit closer. And it sort of moves forward and back. And the last thing I have found on it, which was actually mentioned, to be fair, in some of the advertising, is it has got a, what do they call it? An opening or an inspection hole. So you take this little bit of plastic off and you can see some of the workings in there. And you can see as I press the trigger, it's on like a ratchet system that I assume is moving something forward. So with no instructions and a small amount of skill in this area over my years of doing soldering circuit boards and stuff like that, I would call this a soldering iron. And I've never come across one where the solder is moved forward when you click the trigger. I'm not sure how well that would ever work, but there's nothing that I can see from this at the moment that indicates it's got a laser in it, or why it would possibly be worth £40. You can buy this sort of stuff in like a pound shop or B&M for about £3.99. So I've just been through my stores and I've just got two sets of solder. One's a millimetre in diameter and one's 1.5 millimetres. Oh, yep, okay, so that sort of fits in there. Maybe I should persuade it to go in. So after a few minutes of fiddling about, I'm getting some warmth off of that. That adapter there is temperamental, to say the least. So all I'm going to do is I've got one wire here, bit of flex, and the first thing that anyone ever does with a bit of solder is to tin your wire. So I'm not going to put this through too much stress. If I can tin this, and then at least it's going to work. So it's feeding some sort of solder randomly onto the end of the gun there. So every time I move it forward, the solder goes onto the tip. So yeah, you can sort of use solder using the side. I'm not really using the tip, I'm just using the side of the tip. Not particularly accurate in any way. Just going to turn it off just to let it cool down. So as that cools down, let's just have another quick look at the advert, because I'm not convinced that we're looking at the same two items. So just running through the advert again, I can see some welds going on. There's that cut metal, which this is never going to cut. And that removing that rust from rebar, this is never going to do. It's a soldering iron. I mean, I've seen these machines that use a laser to scan the surface of steel and remove rust, and they exist, but not for £40, and they definitely need quite a high powered laser. The welds I can see being done here, I think are being carried out with what's called a laser, well, it's a laser welder. They exist, they really do. The cheap ones start around about maybe £3,000 to £5,000. If you have one in a proper welding shop, you might pay 20, 30, £40,000 for it. The gun is just at the end of all the gubbins. It's really the box and the laser that comes in quite a heavy duty setup that feeds the laser light to the gun, and then there's a wire feed just like on a standard sort of MIG welder. And as for cutting like that, especially so quickly, I'm not sure whether that's even the same machine. I would suggest that's maybe a plasma cutter. So all of these welds here, if they're proper welds, they are a laser welding machine. But really what we've got here is something that actually sort of looks like a laser welding machine, but which is obviously just a cheap soldering iron. So as I said at the beginning, the reason I spent £40 on this laser welding machine is so you can make up your minds whether you want to invest in one and add to your collection. And what intrigues me is that because there's this little hole here and I can see a little bit of what's going on, I'm quite intrigued to see what's in the rest of the gun. So just the last thing I need to do before I finish this video is just to do a little bit more exploration. I hope you've enjoyed this and it saved you maybe £40. I will see you next time. Well, that's interesting, isn't it?